much and welcome to this episode of Millionaire Marriage by Design. I'm Dr. Sakeisha Heilig.
I'm Eric Heilig.
All right, and we've been talking about the 5 steps to a fulfilling marriage. So right now we're going to dive into step number 3. It's a topic that's it's a lot of controversy about, but it needs to be dealt with. So we're not going to be the ones to shy away from it, okay? You ready?
Okay, yes, ready.
All right, so topic number 3 is, drum roll please. It's going to be sex.
Let's talk about sex.
Honestly, I mean, a lot of times in relationships, sex is a huge challenge. You may have one spouse that wants more sex. You may have one spouse that wants more sex and the other one that may want less of it. You know, a lot of times we come into relationships with vastly different expectations on sex or for sexual intimacy. So it's really important that you and your spouse have that conversation to talk about sex. Don't be intimidated by it. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. The two of you are married.
Exactly.
So especially if there have been some challenges in your past, open up and have those dialogues and find out what are your likes, what are your dislikes, you know, how often, what types of sex, you know. You have to be mindful. You have to think about things like your past sexual history.
Exactly, and maybe one of you may be more experienced than the other. So one of you may not have that much experience at all. So we get that. Truth is when it comes into relationships. Both of you are bringing baggages, so to speak. Big baggages, small baggages, but they still are baggages.
You're going to have different levels of experience and expectation. And as we've talked about some of our previous chats, make sure that you express what you expect. And this is one of those key times where you get to implement that. You express what you expect.
Yes.
How often, you know, where, when. And understand that the two of you may not be on one accord. You know, we have an amazing assessment where we ask the couples that we work with where they are in regards to sex on the scale of 1 to 5. And the funny thing is that a lot of times one spouse is like, we're at a what?
1.
And the other one's like
5.
And so that means there's a huge difference between the two spectrums. So that means there's some communication that needs to take place, that someone has not necessarily been expressing what they've been expecting, or maybe someone else may not be listening.
This is true. Now, you know, you may have some following challenges that could be impacting your sexual intimacy. So there may be some past trauma, some past drama, or maybe even some molestation.
Yeah.
Now, what is big in this situation is pornography, because that can make you have great expectations and unrealistic expectations.
Yes, that's the key word, unrealistic. Don't put that type of pressure on your spouse.
Right. So there are 7 key challenges to sexual intimacy in marriage.
All right. So we're going to talk about it because the funny thing is that there are these things that you have to overcome. And like my husband already mentioned, you know, you may want to take a moment, make sure you have your pen and your paper. So write this down so you can have that very much needed conversation to find out if any one of these situations can apply to these, all of them, some of them. And that way you need to deal with it, okay?
Sometimes we need to just slow it down.
Oh my goodness.
Instead of being Mr. Rabbit.
No pun intended. But definitely one of the barriers to having a fulfilling sex life has to do with your past sexual history. Are you bringing unrealistic expectations into your marriage, expecting your spouse to be like someone you were with in the past? That puts a lot of pressure on them in order to try to live up to these expectations.
Yes. Now, putting sex on your list as last to do.
Yeah.
And you have number 1, children, pornography, abuse, preconceived misconceptions about sex, physical issues, and there are many reasons why a couple experience a disconnect when it comes to sex. Now, however, if I left unaddressed, it's opened the door to such things as searching for gratification and satisfaction,
Okay.
pornification,
Okay. Let's rewind because we know in an actual taping we will not do that. But I mean, some of the seriously, the key issues are going to be your past sexual history.
Right.
What kind of baggage are you bringing into the relationship? What type of expectations are you bringing, or are you kind of, I don't want to say inflicting onto your partner,
right,
but what kind of, are you kind of encouraging or you know, I'm at a loss for words right now.
Well, let's put it this way. You need to talk about your past. Now,
Yeah.
because if you don't understand, like, maybe your wife has no experience and you're expecting her to know all about different positions, the G-spot, the oral sex, and maybe, you know, different types of position like the wheelbarrow or doggy style or the cowgirl, reverse cowgirl. And she's like, what is that, a TV show?
So if you are watching this and those make no sense to you, grab a pen and paper, write those down, or better yet, get a copy of our book, Marriage Can Win, because we go into detail about all of those different positions.
Yes, and this webinar is definitely
for you. Number 2, just making sure that you prioritize sex. Don't put sex as last on your to-do list. Your spouse should not be last on your to-do list. I can't stress that enough. Okay?
Yes.
Because you don't want to be able to give them what's left over after you've poured into everyone else. That opens the door for anger, resentment, division within the relationship or division within the marriage, and a whole other myriad of problems that, you know what, if you just make sure you prioritize your spouse, you know, that make sure that they, yes, that you do that. And it has to go both ways. Be mindful of that. You know, treat your spouse with the same respect that you want in return. So when we're talking about priorities, we talked about making sure you don't put sex last on your to-do list, but also the two of you, okay, you have kids, but the kids should not be your number one priority. Don't get me wrong, you've been given to them, they've been given to you to be taken care of for a period of time, but after the kids grow up and they leave the house, the two of you are still there, and you don't want to be looking across the table at a stranger wondering, who in the heck is this at my house, because I've poured so much time and energy into my children. You wind up being strangers. You don't enjoy each other's presence anymore.
Don't have a relationship with each other. You don't know each other's likes or dislikes.
Yeah, I know there was one couple that we worked with. I think they've been married 14, 15 years. Or no, I take that back. Their oldest daughter is around 21 years of age. And she said that was her greatest fear because the wife had poured so much into the relationship. And you know, she and her husband, they had some challenges, but they stayed together because they wanted to make sure, you know, they were there for the kids, and you know, a lot of baggage coming from the past. And then guess what? The oldest goes away to college. And now they have one at home that's getting ready to go away to college. And she said, she started wondering, she said, what am I going to do when my youngest leaves the nest? Because I spent so much time pouring into them. What am I going to do with him? It's like, it's a stranger. You become roommates instead of a married couple. So that's why it's important that the two of you connect on a regular basis. And it's not just for the physical aspect, but the emotional connection that's built between the two of you as well. Makes sense?
Right, and that's where the communication comes into place. Because you don't want to be sitting in a room and you're just staring at each other. Or what we've seen a lot at restaurants is we look over and we see other couples and they're just sitting there like waiting for their food to come. They're not speaking to each other. Now, I can understand if they may be angry at each other. And I'm not speaking to him because he did something, he said something stupid to me. I understand that, but that's just normal. But sometimes it's just like they don't seem like they have anything to say to each other. They speak very little to each other. So it's like, that's where I'm like, okay,
There's no affection, no communication, no connection.
They gotta reconnect again, and they gotta understand each other, their likes and dislikes, and they gotta have some kind of flow between each other. Communication. So because the communication is the priming pump for sex. We wanna thank you for joining us today on our broadcast.
Let's keep the conversation going. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or subscribe to our YouTube channel under Marriage Can Win.
Also, you can join us 24/7 on our Marriage Can Win podcast at www.themarriagecanwinshow.com. And also connect to us at marriagescanwin.com.
Remember, you can be the change you want to see in your relationship. Until next time, see you soon.